Good morning and welcome to another edition of United Way's What's the Word Wednesdays. My name is Audrey Walker, and today we will be talking about how you can help support Afghan refugees with Samaritas. The last 10 minutes of today's conversation are reserved for questions, so please leave your questions in the Q&A box if you're watching on Zoom or the comment box in Facebook. And now I'd like to introduce Sarah Gold, United Way Senior Director of Health and Basic Needs, to talk a little bit about today's town hall.
Good morning, Audrey, and good morning to all of you joining us today. My Health and Basic Needs team here at United Way works with our partners to support families who are struggling to access necessities like food, shelter, healthcare, and childcare. It probably goes without saying that families who have to flee their home country because of fear of persecution, political or social unrest, or environmental causes are more likely to face these challenges of meeting their basic needs. In 2021, more than 12,500 refugees have already resettled in the United States. And as of this fall, our state plans to take in an additional 1,300 refugees who are fleeing the current crisis in Afghanistan. Our partner Samaritas is working to help 350 of those individuals and families with housing, clothing, and other emergency needs. We are honored to have Kelli Dobner, Samaritas' Chief Advancement Officer, here with us today to talk more about this effort and how all of us can help support and welcome these new Michigan families. Kelli Dobner joined Samaritas' leadership staff in 2017 as Chief Advancement Officer, where she has, among many accomplishments, co-founded the Afghan Refugee Network. She previously held leadership and development roles at the Judson Center, the American Heart Association, and the American Diabetes Association. Dobner earned a master's in communication and media effects from Wayne State University and a bachelor's degree in communication and public relations from Oakland University. She was recognized as an Oakland County Elite 40 Under 40 in 2016. She received the National Strategic Effectiveness Award from the American Diabetes Association, the Graduate Professional Award twice from Wayne State University, and the Donald P. Dorocher Memorial Award from the Public Relations Society of America. A Clinton Township resident, Dobner spends her free time with her husband and two sons, traveling and exploring, and most often can be found on a baseball diamond, soccer field, football field, basketball court, or on the pool deck cheering on her sons. Welcome, Kelli, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's a real pleasure to be here. We're so thrilled to have our wonderful partnership with United Way. You and your staff have been tremendous in partnering with Samaritas in so many ways, certainly through this Afghan Refugee Network initiative that we've created. We're stronger together, and it really takes a village, as cliche as that sounds, that is absolutely the truth. And certainly in this situation, maybe above others right now that currently resides on our plate. So I am so honored to have the opportunity to talk with all of you today about Samaritas' effort with the Afghan refugee crisis, and certainly the launch of our Afghan Refugee Network and all that we're doing to welcome families into Michigan. So, I'm sure, many people are really well versed of what's been happening in Afghanistan. It was a sudden, immediate, urgent, and drastic situation that so many people around the world had to immediately answer the call to be able to help. So at Samaritas, we've been serving Michigan for 87 years in a wide variety of program services across the state, from family preservation, foster care, adoption, senior care, disability services, and a whole lot in between that spectrum. But refugee services has been some of our core initiative at Samaritas. We have been welcoming refugees from all over the world for over 70 years across the state. Michigan has always been a haven for refugees. We have some of the largest populations outside of homelands right here in Southeast Michigan, and certainly growing that in our Grand Rapids community as well. And those are really the two hubs for Samaritas, as well as Lansing. That's another area where we see a lot of our refugees resettle once they come into our care. And so with the Afghan crisis, Samaritas, there was no way we weren't going to answer this call in a big way to respond immediately. And so when our federal partners came to us to say, how many people can you commit to resettling and welcoming and making sure that they have a safe home, Samaritas committed to resettling 350 Afghan women, children, and men into our care at Samaritas. And so, this is a humanitarian crisis, and it's an opportunity to join together and respond loudly to help those who kept our troops safe, rebuild their lives, and make new beginnings. And I think, I get asked the question a lot. You've been in resettlement for so many years. What's the difference with this group? And, in a lot of ways, there isn't. It is people that had no intention of leaving their homeland, and out of desperation and really to save their lives and their families' lives, which we'll talk about in a minute. They are forced to come to the United States. And I won't say that they're not thrilled once they arrive, because escaping what they did and experiencing the welcome that they do when they come into Samaritas and welcoming communities like Michigan, I've heard several families describe as winning the lottery. And so that makes us incredibly proud to be able to serve in that way. But this group from Afghanistan is particularly different because of what I was just talking about, in that they helped our troops and our country in so many ways for the last 20 years while we were in Afghanistan working to keep them safe and their communities safe and thriving. And so, there's a lot of feeling in our community of people wanting to give back and coming forward in a really significant way to help this group of refugees that helped us as a country and our troops. So that's a little bit of a difference. There's also a difference in the types of support that this group is receiving compared to other refugees from other parts of the world. Because the situation was so immediate, the same type of supports and services were not put into place as immediately, or maybe I should say organically, as some of the other groups that Samaritas resettles. And we're working with our federal partners on that, and there's legislation coming out to build more and more supports. But I'll tell you, because Samaritas committed to welcoming the most refugees from Afghanistan across the state, we needed to act fast in being able to have enough supports in place. And so that was why we founded the Afghan Refugee Network. And that is really building a coalition of community, corporate, and civic leaders to band together, partner with Samaritas to come alongside these families and help, because it does take a village. When families come into our care in our resettlement program, 75% of them are self-sufficient within 6 months of coming into our care. That is no small feat. And that's not something Samaritas can do alone. And we rely on our community partners, folks like United Way, and other groups across the organization or across the state to help us in that effort. And that's really what formed the Afghan Refugee Network. We knew right away we needed to raise $430,000 to provide basic needs for up to 4 months for those 350 individuals coming into our care. That includes rent, utilities, food, medical costs, all of those basic needs, while we were working with our federal partners to identify other resources to surround these families. So we are well on our way to raising those funds. We're very excited and grateful for some amazing partners in this space. I said, like United Way. My co-chair of the Afghan Refugee Network is Father Bill Danaher of Christ Church Cranbrook in Bloomfield Hills. And him and his congregation have been phenomenal in providing those resources and opening doors and sharing this opportunity with networks. So many other churches and universities have come forward to offer housing and ESL and transportation, employment opportunities. And that's really phase 2. And I'll get to that in a second. But even folks like Wayne County, the state of Michigan, the Michigan Community Service Commission have just been overwhelmingly supportive in welcoming these families and coming alongside Samaritas and the Afghan Refugee Network. So that was one goal of launching this. The second was housing. We know we have an affordable housing crisis in Michigan right now. So when you add these, several hundred people coming into our care, all of a sudden that creates some issues. And so people have opened up their homes in a temporary setting while we're working on permanent placements, single family homes and apartments, condos. And so, we're really grateful to have those temporary solutions while we're working on finding permanent solutions. The other big piece that's a part of this phase one of the Afghan Refugee Network is building out community sponsorships. And that is working with groups of people, families that band together, churches, even corporate teams that have come together to sponsor a family at 3, 6, 9, and 12-month intervals. They help us find homes, furnish the homes, find transportation, mentor children. We know that we're probably going to see about half of those 350 individuals will be children. And what resources can we provide to help them with the trauma that they've experienced so they can thrive in their new home here in the United States, in Michigan? And so we need community partners to make those time commitments and those sponsorship commitments to help us adopt these families. And that's really phase one. Phase two is working for employment programs. We have a staffing shortage right now in Michigan. And so it's this nice opportunity to bring in new workforce opportunities to meet those demands and make those alignments very nicely with the skills that our refugee families are bringing with them as well. We're seeing engineers and doctors and carpenters and all of those folks as well. How can we build community employment programs to put people to work immediately? Because we know that refugees have such immense contributions to our community. From a cultural perspective to economic perspective, they give back in so many ways that make us a better, stronger community. And so for us to be able to launch the Afghan Refugee Network, build this camaraderie within Michigan to give back to this group and watch them thrive and give back in their own unique way over time, is just an immense honor that Samaritas embraces, and are so grateful to have this community to come alongside us to be able to do it together. And so, with that, I'd like to share a couple of stories of people that have come into our care already. We've had a group of kids with their 3 kids, an 18-year-old and their 2 minor siblings come into our care most recently. They were going to the airport in Afghanistan with their parents. And as they were getting to the airport, the gate closed right after the kids got through, leaving their parents on the other side. And so the children were able to come here. They are now in our care. They are living with a family who's opened up their home with their kids. And so they are finding complete support right now from Samaritas, from our community partners and those resources, but certainly their host family right now as well. They've been in touch with their parents in Afghanistan. They're alive and safe. And we're going to do everything that we can to try and unite them as best we can while we're serving these kids right now. I mean, the woman is 18. And we're assessing, her ability to be a guardian for her two minor siblings. And that is everything that they've experienced in Afghanistan, coming here, being thrown into that situation, that trauma of being separated very, clearly, with a gate from their parents is just, something, and there are so many stories, and we're going to hear more and more, but people that were fleeing their communities, finding refuge in caves as they're making their way to the airport. Women, mothers and daughters who, were raped and fled and watched their brothers and their husbands murdered in front of them. We've seen them, limbs have been severed in front of them before that happens, and then to escape that to a cave before they can get to the airport to find safety. And to come to a base in this country before they're assigned to where they can go within the United States. You have to take a moment to pause and think about putting yourself in those positions, and how can we not, as a country, as a state, as a community, as an organization, as a network, come together and provide the necessary resources to address the trauma and get these families on the road, to self-sufficiency. And when you think about that stat I shared earlier, about 6 months from what I just described, their situation to be is remarkable. And we need as many supports and community partners, sponsors as we can to help these families who, again, will in turn contribute so richly to our lives and our community. Once we can get them through this terrible time in their lives. So, I encourage people to visit Samaritas.org to learn how people can engage in unique ways. Whether that is becoming a sponsor, talking with your congregation, talking with your company, talking with your neighborhood about ways that people can come together to help fundraise, help us with that goal. So we have at least 4 months of funds for basic needs while we work on other resources. Identify single family home opportunities for people to live in. Maybe you have an extra home that's a rental property for you that you can partner with Samaritas to provide homes for these families. We know that on average, we're going to see about 5.5 people per family. That gives you some idea of the size of people, of families that will come into our care. Again, with about half of those probably being children across the board. So, I leave you with those stories and those opportunities to engage. And thank you deeply for all of the people that have come forward already to partner with us, join the Afghan Refugee Network, and learn how you can make a difference in this humanitarian crisis. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. This is something that I think we can all get on board with from again, that human interest, that being human aspect.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly, so much for sharing about that. And we do have some questions here, just to get into a little more details. And I really appreciate you sharing a little bit about what these families and children are experiencing, and for us to keep in mind as they're coming into our community as well. So I was wondering if you can just kind of quickly walk through, you'd mentioned families coming into the care of Samaritas. What does that involve? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, as soon as our federal partners have a family, and I should back up, because they try and place families where family already exists. So if there's a family in Michigan, extended family, even they will maybe be assigned to Michigan to try and reunite families whenever possible. Families can also select where they want to go. And so we're seeing a lot of families in that way. So they will send us a family profile. We have 48 hours to respond of, can we take this family? Do we have suitable placement for their unique situation? And then once we get that approval that yes, we're excited to take them, we have a great place for them and a community partner to partner with us, we will see that family probably within a week's time on average come into our care. That means we are going to the airport to pick them up. We have airport welcome parties, if you will, that can join us and providing that very warm welcome from the start. We then bring them back to their home. We work to provide those furnishings for them. We work with a sponsor, whoever that is, whatever sponsor group that is. I'll use Christchurch Cranbrook as an example. If they've come on to and we've matched them with that family, they will start working with that family right away to find them transportation, again, furnish their homes, take them grocery shopping, set up medical appointments, working with our Secretary of State for Social Security numbers, driver's licenses, everything you can imagine happening all at once. That happens in really the first 90 days of them arriving. Certainly getting kids into the school district and getting them acclimated to what that's like. And then that's why employment happens, but we want to get those things taken care of first, get them settled, comfortable, and then we work on that next. And we do that with our sponsor families as well.
And do those services include, mental health services as you described the trauma that everyone has been through? Is that included in that?
It is. It is. And Samaritas, works with our within our resettlement program, but we try and provide extras, if you will, those additional supports, going above and beyond for physical wellness, mental wellness, all of those supports that we need to make sure that families are getting the resources they need to thrive beyond basic needs. And that sounds odd for me even saying basic needs, because after what they just went through, how do you not classify that mental wellness and everything into those basic need category?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And so then you had mentioned how 75% self-sufficient after 6 months of care. What does continuing services look like? I mean, 6 months doesn't seem like a long time, especially, going through this big change, life change. What does it look like after that period?
Well, we usually work with families in our resettlement program for up to 2 years. So they may be self-sufficient in that 180-day time period, but with the resources that we have in our resettlement program, again, for refugees that are from other parts of the world. So our normal resettlement program will work with families for up to 2 years. That's what we're working on, with our federal partners. How can we provide those same resources for our Afghan ally families as well? And I have full confidence we will have that will happen. So we work with them for that amount of time, to provide those additional resources. Our sponsor families stay connected with their families for years to come. They build lasting relationships that sometimes, they last for a lifetime because of the experience that they went through together. And at Samaritas, we also have our post-resettlement services that allows us to work with families for up to 5 years from the time that they've arrived in this country. And that includes our school impact program, our employment program, a number of other services that, again, sets these families up for success as much as possible, and having that extended period of time beyond that immediate and urgent need to be resettled and welcomed.
And so how has, since this is something, services that Samaritas has provided for over 70 years, I think you mentioned, how has the pandemic and COVID affected services?
Oh, I didn't mean to take such a deep sigh before that question.
That's okay. That's okay. We all feel that deep sigh.
Well, it's been challenging, as much as we've been able to work remotely to work with families, we have, but not all of our work can be done in that way. And I'll tell you, the bigger story, I don't want to say bigger, the story in addition to the Afghanistan story is through most of COVID, we have not seen a lot of arrivals. With the change of administration, during that time, which was a big portion of COVID, we were not seeing a lot of arrivals. Samaritas in its heyday, when arrivals and our borders are open, we're working with thousands of refugees every year. During this last administration, that number went down significantly to maybe a couple hundred per year. So I guess that's the silver lining too, as well, during that we haven't seen a lot of refugees come into our care during this COVID period. And now with the new administration, those borders have opened, and we have gone from 15,000 arrivals across the country to this year, 65,000 between now this summer and next summer, we'll say. And then the next year is going to open up to even more, 125,000, I believe was the last number that was communicated. So we're going to be back up into that several thousand again. And in addition, Samaritas was already preparing to welcome 1,000 refugees from other parts of the country this year alone, between this year and next summer, from other parts of the world outside of Afghanistan. So all of a sudden, we're looking at 1,350 people coming into our care, and those numbers are only going to increase. So as the world is starting to open up, as people are vaccinated, including our refugee population, they have that opportunity when they come onto the base to do that. I think that this is a perfect storm in a good way, that we're able to have that face-to-face and operate our resettlement program like we know how to do and are used to doing pre-COVID time. with a little additional, I guess you could say, resources to be able to serve remotely as we need to. We just have a few more tools in our toolkit
Sure.
now because of this experience.
That's good that, it's almost like it ebbs and flows with what you're able to provide. And, I guess that could be a good thing as well. We had a question here. I know we talked about what happens when families come into our community. And we had a question come in that talks about if you're working with schools, or what does that education support look like? I know you mentioned ESL, English as a second language, and things like that. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yes, that's a big part of what we do, is working with our school districts to make sure that our incoming refugee children have the resources that they need. ESL is a big part of that, but so is our mentorship program. And our mentorship program isn't necessarily tied to the schools, because each situation is a little unique depending on the school district. And so we've built strong relationships with some of our significant school districts where we place a lot of our families. So the schools provide a lot of those additional resources along with our caseworkers. And then the mentors come into it in working with our kids as another positive adult role model that they can lean on, help with schoolwork, be another interface with the schools, the children's teachers, things like that. But what we find with kids is that they're resilient, for one, and they catch on a lot quicker. The technology aspect, which helps break down barriers, oftentimes is organic, hardwired almost in kids, and they pick that up quickly. Same with language. A lot of times, the kids know English more than their parents, and they certainly are able to pick it up and help teach their parents in a lot of ways as well to break down those barriers.
Yeah.
But those are some of the biggest ones, but just working very closely with the school districts to get them in certain programs for additional supports that they need, and then connecting them with outside mentors as another place for them to go for additional help.
Mm-hmm. And I've got like a two-part question, and I know we're running out of time here. We're just learning so much from you. But one of the things you mentioned volunteering and tutoring and donations as, having the greatest impact. One of the things that, we got some questions on, like, what's a simple way that someone can welcome? And then in addition to that, how can then we help with any sort of misconceptions around refugees coming into our community? I think that would be helpful for us to know.
Sure. So I'll tackle the first one. As far as volunteerism, I said, helping to adopt a family, become a mentor, donate. You can go on our website and sign up to be a volunteer, and you can see the different opportunities that exist there, because there's a long list of ways that you can contribute, even most immediately to down the road. I mean, even things as far as like realtors are concerned, anybody who can help us find rental properties and affordable housing options, in your niche of being able to marry your volunteerism with your business expertise is huge. There are different drive opportunities, of things that we'll need now and in the future. So I would encourage people to visit Samaritas.org for a list of those opportunities. Sign up to be a volunteer, and we'll be in connection with you and be able to plug you in those different unique ways. And then the second part of your question was about the myths around a refugee, because there's been an overwhelming amount of positive opportunities or viewpoints, I guess, expressed around this group. But there are some people that do have questions about that. And I will tell you, refugees have to go through quite a bit to earn that refugee status. Granted, with the Afghan situation, that vetting process has been shortened a tad compared to other refugees from other parts of the world who go through, on average, refugees will live in a refugee camp for up to 2 years, I should say at least 2 years before they even come to this country. They have a long road. We probably know more about refugees coming into our country than we do about people that already live in this country through the vetting process. It's extensive. And you know, the other part is what I was saying before. You know, our refugee population, they weren't necessarily looking to come to this country. It was out of necessity to flee for their lives. And you see parents that are making the gut-wrenching decision sometimes, you know, that this is the best thing for my child, you know, and they work to get them into this country, and hopefully they're coming with them, unlike the case that I described earlier. But they're trying. So it's not necessarily, you know, that type of situation that you can see from the negative viewpoint when people are uneducated about what it means to be a refugee in that refugee experience. So if you can spread the positive energy around this experience, that's why I share some of the traumas and the horrors that these families are going through, to give people a little more education and perspective around what they've been through and where they're trying to get to, simply to survive, first and foremost, be able to provide the best lives for their families and their kids, and then be able to contribute to this community where they end up is really that journey. And it's a gut-wrenching one is the best way to describe it. So I just encourage people to become educated, learn what that means beyond what I've been able to share here, because I know we're running out of time, and help spread that positive aspect around this, and the contributions that all groups that are refugees, immigrants are alike. I mean, our country's been founded on this. What would we be like if we weren't an open community, a welcoming haven for groups from all over the world? I wouldn't be the country we are today.
Thank you so much for this, for sharing all this information, for your passion, and for helping to, you know, educate and let us know how we can welcome people into our community. We really appreciate it. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah now to close us out.
Thanks, Audrey. And thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us today. That was just remarkable information, and so wonderful and inspiring to hear about the work that you all do. I'm sure people are going to get involved because you've done such a good job of educating us. We have just a few more updates to share before we close things out today. First, as a reminder for anyone in our community who may be experiencing need, our 211 helpline remains available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We maintain a running list of available services in the community, and we can connect you to the support that you need. You can also look up resources in your area by using our 211 resource directory found at unitedwaysem.org/211. Next week at our What's the Word Wednesday Town Hall, we'll be joined by Lori Hill Sanders, Executive Director of the Disability Network, Wayne County, Detroit, to share information about their programs and resources that work to support individuals with disabilities. To see our previous town halls and to sign up for email updates on upcoming town halls, please visit unitedwaysem.org/virtual town halls. The website is also included in the chat box. Thank you everyone for your time today. We'll see you soon, and please stay safe and continue to live united.